It's Melanie White with the Sage Women's Podcast, and today I'm excited to introduce our guest, Monique van Tulder. Welcome, Monique, and thanks for being here.
Melanie, thank you. I'm thrilled to be asked.
I'm really excited to hear a bit of your story and what you're up to in this space. But before we go there, could you give us a little bit of background about you so everyone knows who they're listening to?
Wonderful, thank you. I'll try and keep it succinct. Look, I currently work as a midlife mentor. However, my journey to get here goes a long way back. I had a professional career in travel, and then segued into becoming a clinical nutritionist and a personal trainer when my kids were younger, and ran a business for a number of years doing that. And also in the organic food space as well, and ran a kids' food school for quite a while. So I guess you could say that well-being is my love. However, I woke up when I was 53, 2 years ago, and realised that I had become essentially the top of the pyramid for people we need for my family and extended family, and very much the bottom of my own. And so then I unfortunately also experienced the loss of a very dear friend. And from there, I had a massive wake-up call. I was living a life in grayscale when really my values aligned to a life in Technicolor. And so I started to claw my way back. So now I work with clients in the midlife or in their midlife to realise their possibilities and regain their well-being, their confidence, their personal branding, and just set forth for a life of joy. Because we're going to live a lot longer than a lot of our previous generations, and I think it behooves us to do it with a positive mindset. Anyway, there you go. I said I'd make it short. I've made it long.
It's really interesting, and just to say thank you for sharing a vulnerable moment from your story. And it's interesting what inspires us to do certain things in life and to look at things differently. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I guess the next thing I'd like to ask is about your own menopause journey or perimenopause journey outside of what you've described.
Sure. Look, Melanie, it continues. First of all, I think it's fabulous the work that you're doing with Sage Women's Health, because it's a conversation that hasn't been had previously, and now, of course, is everywhere, or starting to be everywhere, and that is a magnificent thing. However, I think for the most part, and most midlife women, we still are in a state of flux of what does perimenopause entail? What does it mean? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for our community? Where do we find support? So my journey, I guess, probably in retrospect, now that I actually understand what perimenopause is, probably began when I was about 40. Wow. And just really, quite bizarre things, again, in retrospect. I'd always been a very adventurous, go-getting, positive type of person, and quite brave. And then all of a sudden I was driving through a tunnel one day and had a panic attack. I mean, I didn't know it was that at the time, but quite literally was shaking and barely made it through the tunnel, and haven't been able to drive through tunnels ever since. I mean, this is a tiny, ridiculous sort of small thing to say, but in having researched and having the knowledge that I have now, I understand that perimenopause comes in so many different forms. I mean, we all hear about the night sweats and the various other sort of physical ailments, but not many people understand that there's also, the various, mental impairments. That's a dreadful way to put it. But anyway, you'll articulate it better, that come with the condition. And so probably my journey in perimenopause was about 10, 11 years without really understanding that's what it was. And of course, not seeking help other than going to the doctor and saying, I think I need a blood test, or maybe I'm going mad, or maybe I'm depressed, or whatever. And again, not actually really be able to find support.
Must have been a really shock for you to have that moment in the tunnel.
Oh, it's dreadful. And again, also because I couldn't articulate it and I felt quite ashamed. And that was just but one. All of a sudden my positive attitude started to diminish, and, confidence was dissipating. And again, we can debate whether that came hand in hand with my own two teenage sons, hitting their hormonal surges. And again, we don't talk about that a lot in boys. So there's another conversation. But if we do have children, we're having children older than certainly my mother's generation did. And so, our households are full of hormonal hell. We didn't necessarily have the terminology or understanding, and we do now, which is great. But it was shocking, absolutely shocking. But again, it's only in retrospect I can see these things. And at the time, when you sort of, you bumble along doing what you do, don't you? Sadly, or I did, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, I don't know about your mum, but my mum and many women I speak to of our age didn't speak to their mothers about menopause, or didn't know that their mothers were going through it. So they didn't know what to expect or how to handle it or what to do. So I think we've taken on or adopted that stiff upper lip mentality of, we'll just keep calm and carry on. And we don't ask for help, which means that we're going through something that we don't realise or understand for up to 10 years.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Look, my mother's quite a young mum, and she had her own, female health issues, and which meant she went into menopause at a very, very young age. She was about 30. And my heart bleeds for her because, yes, hormones and things were shoved at her because that the debilitating report that cut HRT support for a whole generation of women hadn't quite hit the airwaves yet when she was forced into an early menopause. So yes, HRT was thrown at her, but as you say, asking for support and understanding the consequences or not or whatever, it was just early days. So yeah, I mean, I can see now her own journey as well. It was sort of, mum's going mad. Well, mum probably was going mad, but for reasons that were predominantly hormonal, and no one had the narrative for them. So yeah.
So what's the work that you're doing now, Monique, in this space?
So look, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, well-being, wellness is my love, my mantra, I suppose. I'm fairly simplistic in my own lifestyle. I move every day. I try and eat real food, for the most part, sleep well, all of those pillars that we know are fabulous for a healthy aging body and mind. But, I guess the overarching teaching, I suppose, or empowerment that I want to give to other women is confidence and a positive mindset, and just a realization of all of the possibilities that there are for them. We hit midlife and we've either raised a family or we've come to the part or pinnacle of a career, or both. We either have partners or we don't, or we're unpartnering, or whatever the case may be. It's just an absolute stage of flux, midlife. And so I guide my clients to discover their own magic midlife, I suppose. It sounds a bit woo-woo, but the reality is hopefully another 40 years or so that we've got ahead of us, and what form do they want it to take. So sit with them with the pertinent questions and let them sort of untangle and find their way through that to be able to step forth themselves.
I love that you're working in this area, because we don't talk a lot about confidence. We know that it's a byproduct of going through such a significant change of life where everything's thrown up in the air. But can you speak a little bit to perhaps what causes a lack of confidence in women at this age?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Previously, not now, I'll say previously, women over 50 were portrayed as grey-haired and standing around in a dressing gown. I'll segue slightly. My mother is very beautiful. And when she left her high-powered career as one of the first female real estate auctioneers in North Queensland, she ran, Ray White real estate in the Whitsundays, and she was a trailblazer for women before that was even really a thing to think of. And I'm only sad that I didn't realise that sooner and probably give her dues. But anyway, teenage daughters aren't the kindest. And so I'll put my hand up and say I was dreadful. But anyway, so she gave up her career. She decided to retire at age, I don't know, late 60 something. And I said, well, go and do something, join an agency. You're beautiful, go and have some fun, make some money and do something. So anyway, she set off for her first sort of modelling gig and was shoved in the bushes in a dressing gown with revolting hair, revolting makeup, because that was the media portrayal of an older woman.
Wow.
Only 10 years ago. Anyway, long story. Now we have, silver-haired role models. Everyone's decided, or not everyone, but plenty of people are deciding to not, dye their hair or to look their own way and stand in their own power in their age. And now I can't even remember what the hell you were saying because I talk so much. So what were you saying?
Well, I was asking about the cause of the lack of confidence.
Oh, yes, of course. So, we get to a certain stage in life where we've done lots of things for other people. We've, gone along our professional trajectory. We may have foregone our well-being, health, wellness along the way. And we're not standing in the form of the person that we probably once were, and that maybe in our head we still are. We might stand in the mirror and think, my God, there's an old woman staring back at me, and yeah, who am I and what do I want? And with that comes a lack of confidence. And it's not about how you look. However, as I stated slightly, earlier in our conversation, personal branding is an important thing. How do you want the world to see you? But before all of that is, how do you see yourself? What are your values? And I think we lose sight of our values. So that's probably the answer to the question I could have given you 5 minutes ago. What are your values? What do you hold dear in life? What's really important to you? And then come from there. And once you stand in those, then your confidence flows.
I love that. And I love the story about your mum, because she was obviously a trailblazer. And you talked about the media as recently as 10 years ago portraying women over 50 as the grey hair, dressing gown, slipper wearing. So yes. In other words, we're conditioned to believe that that's what we should become.
Correct. And hopefully not so much now. Now we're allowed to, from a media perspective, stand in our bikinis in public and, be naked in terms of makeup. We don't have to be, packing that on, although makeup is beautiful and it's enhancing if that's the way that you choose to go. We can have work done on our face, our bodies, or not. It's lovely to have this sense of freedom. And I think, look, I go back to, I'm showing my age now, but the movie Shirley Valentine, where Shirley was shown, and look, honestly, if you rewatch it now, which I did recently, oh my God, I don't even think she was 50. And she was portrayed as this frumpy old housewife who literally ran screaming from her kitchen. I feel her pain because I probably did something that wasn't dissimilar last year. I did run away from my family for 8 months. But, we've moved on since then. It's not just running from our kitchen, it's running to ourselves, I think, which is a wonderful, wonderful way to be. And moving forward for us, midlifers now, and the young women coming behind us, I think it's positive and a brighter future in that regards. It's not over and out till it's actually over and out. It's just the next phase, the second act.
I'm really interested and curious to hear about your running away story, if you want to tell that. I know that you're writing a book as well, and you may or may not want to reveal much of that. It's up to you as to where you're at in the process, but love to hear a little bit more about that journey.
Thank you, Melanie. Look, where I'm at the process in terms of writing the book is where I'm always at. I have so much love for life that it's very hard to tie my bum to a chair and actually put in the work in that regard. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have to attach a microphone and do it as I'm on the run. But yeah, look, as I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, I did wake up a couple of years ago realizing I was living in grayscale and not the Technicolor that I I wanted for my life, where I always thought my life would be, and circumstances are such that that happens. Because, you know, life is reality. It's not one great big long joyful party. I mean, you know, the ebbs and flows of our various parts of life. But anyway, long story short, I had young teens still living at home. They'd gone to uni, husband still working very hard in a reinvigorated career and happy as, you know, as he could be. And I was floundering, and I'd sort of tried to verbalise that and, you know, let everybody know that mum needed to stand up and it needed to be her time. And look, not their fault. I'd allowed it to become that way, but nobody was listening. So I took off. We have a house in North Queensland. I'm here today, which is wonderful. It's where I take off to when I need a bit of a breather. Very, very lucky. Took off here. They all followed me. I think they were all looking for a hot meal after a few months. So they came. And so then I decided, no, blow this. So I booked a trip overseas. I should caveat, I have a father who lives in Holland and a sister in London. So I did go and visit them. And then after a few weeks, thought, no, bugger it, I'm staying. And I went off for the adventure of a lifetime and gifted myself 8 weeks with knowing nobody and no agenda other than just to, sounds very middle class of me, find myself. But I did. It was great.
Wow. What were some of the important insights that you got from that process of upheaval and rebirth?
That we're not alone if we choose that path, or if we feel that that we are in a slump, a midlife slump, that we're not alone. Once you start talking to other women globally, we tend to all be very much connected. And so that was very interesting, insightful, and humbling as well. No matter our circumstances, we all feel the same. In essence, that was one insight. And the other insight is, as I said before, it's not over till it's over. You're never too old. It's never too late. You can reinvigorate yourself. I don't like the word reinvent, because that's suggesting that you need to sort of throw out what became, you know, what came before. But I think, you know, we're all made up of all facets of our life, all the decades of our life, all of our circumstances. And so I think a reinvigoration of self is incredibly exciting and empowering, really, really empowering.
It's interesting you use the word reinvigorate and talking about not reinventing, and it takes me back to the coaching process that we're both familiar with, of helping people to talk through what's going on and to get a different perspective on things. And I think we live with ourselves and we adjust to what we think is normal and we see things a certain way, but it's not until you actually stand back and go, oh, who am I really, and what am I capable of, and what are my achievements, and what are my strengths, and what matters to me now, and who do I want to be going forward? Nobody makes time for that really important reflection that helps us create the new self.
That is absolutely true. And it's funny you should ask that or say that, because I live in Instagram, love it, or on Instagram. I probably should spend a little bit more time on there, and the book might get written. However, I did put a post up this morning, just a few hours ago, about sitting still in yourself and really thinking about what it is that you stand for, that you hold dear, and what kind of shape you want your future to take. And that begins with looking at your values. What do you value? Who do you value? And from there, you know, the rest will flow. Well, flurry of DMs looking for a values list, and also commenting on that. So I hit a nerve clearly, and yeah, absolutely. It's holding space, asking questions, and then letting people sit in themselves and come to some sort of conclusion. Key to certainly the coaching that we're both familiar with, and positive psychology, but just life in general.
And I love the way you talk about personal branding and style, and doing that for women at this age. It seems like a really good fit with the process of rediscovering yourself, reinvigorating who you are, looking at how you're going to go forward with your best foot for yourself.
Yeah.
What led you down that path of the concept of personal branding?
Look, as most things, I don't plan. Things organically evolve. look, for me, my family background is in style, fashion, so on and so forth. My parents were in fashion, manufacture, and design. So I am an aesthetically driven person anyway, and we're not all, and that's neither here nor there. However, we live in such a visual society now. I think it is really important, if you're feeling fantastic on the outside, let the world see that on the inside, let the world see that on the outside as well. You know, who do you want to be perceived as, and also those first few moments of meeting new people, they're going to look at you and they're going to form an opinion, and maybe that is a great idea to have a think about what opinion it is that you want them to form. And as I said, it's not all about how you look, but it's how you feel. And then, of course, the reverse is true. If you're not feeling so great, another place to start, and I do recommend this for some clients, or we come to that conclusion, or they come to it themselves, fake it till you make it is on the flip side of the coin. If you're not feeling so great, or if you are feeling a little bit lost, have a think about, who it is that you want to be. Start with the outside, and then the inside will flow. So, I think there's sort of two ways to tackle that. Not everyone will agree, but I'll stand firm in that.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, because we know so much about the psychology of colour and the visual side of things, and how that affects our psychology. And definitely, if we're making any change, setting up the environment is part of that. And the way you dress, the way you show up can be part of that. And the language you use is a positive or negative. But going a bit on a tangent but related, I was talking to someone that we both know recently who'd been to Europe, and she was saying, I had such a great time as an older woman being revered and recognised and respected in Europe. And then I got home to Australia and remembered that I had to be invisible here because the culture is so different. And I thought, isn't that interesting? And I just, thinking about the way we look and feel and show up, I wondered if you'd had that experience when you were on your journey through Europe, being respected and revered, or were you invisible? What was that experience like?
I have too much to say on that, because I should say I am 100% European. Both parents are Dutch Belgian. So I do love my adopted country, Australia. However, we are very Anglo, and I will say that might be controversial, but we are. Yeah. And I think we also spend too much time thinking about what other people think about us. And I try and let my young men in my household know that actually nobody cares about you. They're too busy thinking about themselves. So you be you, and that's the best version that you could possibly give the world, as your authentic self. So in Europe, I landed with my Anglo decades upon my head. I hadn't been to Europe, obviously. We'd had COVID. So, that had been knocked on the head for a while. And I was sitting by the pool, my 54-year-old frame that was fit, but I still had on a one piece. And I looked around and I realized I was the only woman over 50 wearing a one piece. So I stomped off to the shops and bought a very skimpy bikini and sat there out and proud, and nobody cared, nobody looked, but God, I felt good. Put a photo up on Instagram and said, this is how we do it in Europe. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. Not sure that they all went down to Bondi to replicate, but nevertheless, the idea was there. And again, I come back to Instagram because I clearly spend too much time there. I posted last week a photo of my nearly 80-year-old stepmom, who was lying by the sea in their Croatian caravan park in a bright yellow, very small bikini with a glass of wine in hand, and I rest my case. There it is. So no, I did not feel invisible. I felt very visible. And we can take a leaf out of their book.
It sounds like there's a complete lack of judgment. You can be who you are and you're respected as a person, not for... Yeah.
And look, and I travel a lot to Japan as well. And okay, so it's quite a conservative patriarchal society in many ways, but nevertheless, older people in Japan are revered and in fact invited to remain a vital part of their communities. And very many communities in Japan do have older people still working and encouraged to work. And they've got an older workforce. They need the people to work, but they did that, for many generations. So it's important. And anyway, we could cite so many global instances of where older people are revered and not necessarily here. So much so. I did say something the other day, I think it was in LinkedIn, that what is it? There are studies that show that midlife women are the best, make the best new employees. And unfortunately, the market is still catching up to that. But for so many reasons, we do, and we are.
And I guess then it's up to us to stand up for ourselves and say, hey, we're here, we're awesome, we're capable, and not to be ashamed or concerned about the changes that are going on, but to love and accept and adopt those things. We'll learn how to do that so that we can make the best of our next 40, 50 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing that I will add is that we need to stand together. And with your Sage Women's Health, you're going to be in various businesses and showing us how to do that, because there has been scarcity in terms of women reaching positions, that they would have been qualified for, or the better person for the job. And that pendulum is shifting. But I think with this also, we need to be looking at, who are we supporting in midlife? If we're in positions of being able to employ people, give a midlife woman a chance. And I think you'll be very glad as a business that you did. We have a lot of experience, and we have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy, and we'll be in it for the long haul. We'll reward you with sticking around and adding to the business, not detracting.
Great insights, Monique. Thanks for that. Any last tips or thoughts before we wrap up today?
Look, I think, we've covered so much, and Melanie, I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity. I would just like to say, listen, the world is your oyster, go and get it. And so if you are a midlife woman listening to this, just what is it that you never did that you wish you did? Go and do it, go and give it a go. Worst that can happen is you never really wanted it in the first place. The best thing is that you'll find out and you won't die wondering. So go forth in positivity and possibility. Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Monique. We'll put some links of yours into the notes for this podcast, so anyone interested in reaching out to you can do so.
Fantastic. Thanks. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye.